Now, what else shall we talk about?
Mayor, I wanted to ask, she's very random, but are city committee chairs required to post schedules and agendas there, and where are they?
Yes. Well, it's a public meeting, and so yes, they are required to be posted, and we post them outside City Hall. We email people who have indicated that they want to be notified. And Janice, help me out here.
There is a space on the
And there's
committee pages.
and there's a City Council committee page on the website as well.
Is it time to make sure that all of that gets posted on the internet? I mean,
It is on the internet.
Well,
But you mean, is it, how would you like?
Council doesn't always get it. They're not always.
Yes. Now, they are independent elected officials, and I cannot force them to do things, but I can make sure that my staff takes on that responsibility. So, good point.
some of them haven't been updated since January, that's why I'm asking.
Okay, I'm looking at Janice. We just have to work with the agenda director, Ms. Cornejo, to make sure that happens. Council, I hadn't realized that council members weren't doing that. So, good point.
Mayor?
I'm going to come over here and I'll come around. Yes.
All right, well, I have two questions. First one, can you talk about whether you're excited to see phase 2 of the recycling expansion?
I'm extremely excited to see phase 2 of the recycling expansion. As we've discussed, this will double the number of households that have recycling in the city of Houston. And my goal is to have curbside recycling at every household in the city of Houston. While we are exploring the cutting edge technology of one bin for all, we are committed to our current recycling program and to expand it as rapidly as we can. It's a resource issue because we have to, we purchase the carts, we purchase the trucks, we have to hire the crews to do the pickup, but very excited that this is another huge step forward, and I'm very appreciative that council approved it in the budget we passed in June.
And then second question, could you just walk us through what review the city is doing because of the federal shutdown? There was some discussion today about some specific, I'll let you just jump in.
Okay. We don't have a lot of direct funding by the federal government. We have grant funding, and the grant funding falls into two categories. Some of the grants, well, they fall in a lot of categories, but two rough way they're delivered. Some of the grants are the money comes to us and we disperse it, and there'll be no impact immediately from those types of grants. Other grants are those where we spend the money and we are reimbursed. And for those grants, we're going to have to be cautious to make sure that, once the government shutdown eases, that we will in fact be reimbursed for the expenditures that we make. There are directly funded federal employees, however, that are in essence embedded in certain city departments, and those have been furloughed. Now, it shouldn't impact the direct provision of services across the city, but we have made an inquiry to all the city departments to let us know what the short-term and long-term impacts are going to be from the government shutdown. But we think in the near term, the impact on direct services to the citizens will be minimal, but we certainly, if it goes on very long, one of the main concerns will be on the nonprofit organizations that depend on government grants that we administer. And I think it's not just about what happens in the city of Houston, because we will analyze whether something is an essential service and whether we're willing to do it on our own local tax dollars or wait for the federal tax dollars. But there are many, many nonprofit organizations that are going to be very uncomfortable for a while.
So what timeline, at what point do you quit being short-term and start looking long-term? How do we fix this?
Well, we're in the process of analyzing each department and each area where there may be an impact, and there's not a one-size-fits-all situation. It's going to be on a grant-by-grant basis, and we'll see how it goes. I'm compiling the data now to provide to City Council, and we'll keep them updated regularly. But this is an area where local government knows how to get things done, and we know that you have to work together across the aisle, and you don't play chicken with each other. I hope that council members will join me in contacting our federal representatives on both sides of the aisle to say we need to move this forward. This is not just disruptive to government employees, it ultimately could have a significant impact on a recovery that, while it's going well in Houston, is still fairly tentative in a lot of places in the United States. And so they not only may have an impact, the long-term impact may be to throw us back into a recession, and it is irresponsible.
So just to be clear, there will be no cutting back on TB cases, anything like that?
Nothing in the short term. Yes, we have TB testing and monitoring is something that we receive federal grants for, and that I believe that is one area where we actually had some embedded federal employees who have been furloughed, but the actual day-to-day work is still going on, and we intend to continue business as usual as long as we can.
Mayor, how many employees, if you know the number or roughly, how many federal employees work essentially for the city and have been furloughed?
Well, no city employees obviously have been furloughed. There have been some embedded federal employees, and I think there are about maybe 7 in the health department that have been furloughed, but the actual ongoing services will continue. Now, I do know that the control tower at Ellington was shut down at midnight last night because air traffic control is federal service. Ellington is still operating on visual flight rules and will continue to operate, we think, safely until this situation is resolved.
Any other departments that have?
We're still analyzing the impact, but again, there's not an immediate impact for the most part to the city of Houston, because either the grants that are pre-funded, we're still spending the grants, and it's whether those grants are renewed, and grants that are reimbursable, we will continue to work with our federal counterparts to determine when and where that process will begin again. And if there's a commitment that we'll be made whole, we're going to certainly continue to provide the services.
Ellington shut down at midnight this morning or midnight
Yesterday. Just the air traffic control. Ellington's still operating. When the government shut down and they gave notice to all the federal employees, that's when they had the impact. Obviously, no impact at Hobby or Bush Intercontinental from this, because air traffic control is an essential service.
Mayor, control Mr. Green has indicated today that there was a drop, and a continued drop for a period of time in the amount of tickets and revenue from the Mississippi. Is there anything you can do, or the judge that handles this increase ticket writing?
I don't know that most Houstonians would be excited if I stood here and said we're really going to go out and be aggressive on traffic ticket writing. I will point out that a lot of our traffic enforcement over the years has been done with overtime dollars, and a lot of that overtime is federally grant funded. And so as there's been a general decrease in the amount of grant dollars available for that type of enforcement, our own enforcement has fallen off, and I'm not interested in pulling people off of patrol to put them on traffic enforcement. We have to do traffic enforcement And we do it as a regular part of our police services, but we don't plan on doing anything in the near term to move more officers into that area. We did receive a grant notice that we are going to be receiving more so-called COPS grants, which actually allow us to fund new police officers and hire new police officers. That's a protected grant under the government shutdown. So we look forward to having more officers on the street.
One other question.
Hang on, I'm coming over here. We're still investigating the circumstances of the wreck. It was clearly a tragic incident, and we always strive to keep anybody who is in police custody safe, but I can't comment until we know the actual circumstances. No. The Thanksgiving Parade is a brand new Thanksgiving Parade with a brand new organizing committee. When the Houston International Festival said we're done and walked away from it, I worked with the business community to form a new organizing committee, and we will have what we hope will be a really wonderful Thanksgiving Parade. The Houston International Fest is in the process of working through their financial issues on their festival for next year. I mean, they did that, and they also did the Thanksgiving Parade. Their debt has nothing. It's a private entity, and that's why a lot of folks were saying, well, how could this happen that the Thanksgiving Parade might go away? It had been a private event for a very long time, just like the Houston International Festival is a private event. The Rodeo Parade is a private event. The Bio City Art Fest is a private event. And until they were willing to cede control over it, we're not interested in taking over every festival that's out there. But I personally believe that the Thanksgiving Parade is a cultural tradition here, and I wanted to make sure that we were able to pick it up, and the private sector has come forward to underwrite it. Uh-huh.
How is the city of Houston working with the states to keep those in appointment with the Affordable Care?
Well, we had an event yesterday on the Affordable Care Act that there's information available at city health clinics and at libraries. The health department has received federal funding to help help navigate people through the process, and we're also working with a number of other providers across the community to provide neutral enrollment information. So they can call 311 to find locations.
I had one last question. The funding that you received for the tuberculosis program, is that money that you front and
Yes.
that's reimbursement?
Our tuberculosis funding is we pay, and is a reimbursable grant. We reimburse our actual costs, and so we're still expecting that we'll be reimbursed, and we're still providing the service. There were some embedded technical experts here that have been pulled off the job. So yes, we are still monitoring and testing TB today. Thank you. Appreciate it. Check out the app. Help us spread the word.